Welcome to Talking Heads on USA Global TV, starring the one and only wonderful Dr. Jacalyn. It's a prestigious place where world-class influencers and experts meet, and where you'll find the most trusted advisors and coaches for all things in life and business. Visit usaglobaltv.com to sign up for our newsletter, get the value you need, and be first in line to learn about events and giveaways and other valuable content. Connect with us. Email Dr. Jacalyn at usaglobaltv.com to talk about how you can become part of USA Global TV. That's USA Global TV, where the doctor is always in.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to USA Global TV, home of Talking Heads. And hello to our friends listening on Business Talk Radio. Hi, Chris Roberts. I am so excited for our show. This is the Business Talk Show. I am Dr. Jacalyn Kerbeck, and we will be celebrating our 1000th episode on Business Talk Radio this week. And I give a lot of that credit to this man, my co-host, friend, and partner, Mr. al.cini, who's been there since the beginning.
The very beginning. That was almost a year and a half ago. We're getting
yes.
Yeah, it was a little rocky in the beginning, but Dr. Jacalyn, working with you has been a real pleasure. Today's episode installment is no exception, and I can't believe you're 1,000 episodes in on Business Talk Radio. That's amazing, and congratulations. Quite an accomplishment.
Thank you. I think even they're amazed. So, and this is our 71st episode of the Business Talk Show. So that's pretty cool.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, that's 71 hours of airtime. That's amazing. Wow.
You know, something I want to share that you really were instrumental in helping me with was when I would do the beginning of the show. In the very beginning, I would talk like a broadcaster is supposed to speak. Yeah, welcome to the program. And you're like, why don't you just be yourself? And that was such a great tip, because I was putting on a persona that wasn't me.
That's developed really nicely, and it developed very quickly, by the way. It's not like all of a sudden now you're doing it. You actually pretty quickly picked up that your personality, including any hints of a regional accent, including the way you laugh, including the way everything about you is part of who you are. And try to pretend that it's not there. I mean, that people spot that. And, to your credit, really, I have a little bit of experience in broadcasting, more behind the camera. So I know a little bit about that, but you really picked it up quickly. And I think you've really elevated it to an art form, Doc.
Oh, well, thank you. That's so sweet. But I have learned quite a bit from you, and I will always be very grateful to you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the kind words.
Let's start off our show with you sharing what you're doing at BCAT. We've got a guest coming. The guest isn't here, but I want to hear about you right now.
Well, thank you. And, I'm highlighted. Oh, my God. That's too tight, too much of a close-up. Back up, Al. The Brand and Culture Alignment Toolkit is about tapping into something that actually is the subject we're going to be discussing today. And I know our guest, Suzanne Taylor King, is delayed for some reason and may be joining us at any time, and we'll just loop her into the conversation when she arrives. But I want to start by saying that in a lot of organizations, the marketing operation and the HR operation are considered, in most organizations, they're two different departments. What we've learned in our experience with brand and culture alignment is that the reason why people buy from you and the reason why people want to join you, why they want to work for you, why they want to be a part of you, they're really the same reason, and that's to become a better version of themselves. That better version of self is a tremendous intrinsic driver, not just for customers to want to buy from you, but also for employees to want to stay with you and continue to be a part of what you're offering. And also for people outside to get in line and jump in when you have a job available. And there are some companies, even during the Great Resignation, that still can't process resumes because they don't have enough openings, because there's so many people who want to go work for them rather than the competition. And your company could be one of those companies. All you have to do is tap into the power of the purpose of your organization and communicate that as part of your brand. That gets people excited. That motivates them. That solves the problem of the Great Resignation. And the segue into what we were going to talk about, Doc, and even if our guest doesn't show, you're a coach. Helping people become a better version of themselves is what coaches do for a living. I mean, and whether it's a business coach or an executive coach or a life coach, your job is to help people identify what that better version looks like and put a plan together to become more like that better version without ever losing their authenticity. Does that sound like a good way to describe what you do for a living, Doc, when you're not hosting a wonderful USA Global TV television program?
Yes, thank you. In terms of my coaching role, it does. And, Al, I think of you as a coach also because you've really helped me see another version of myself. I've worked with a number of coaches. Every person obviously has their own approach to coaching. And some of the things that I've experienced when I've hired people is you get into a session and they are giving their opinion the whole time. And so you're hearing what's happening with you, and then they're telling you, well, you shouldn't be doing this, you should be doing that, et cetera, et cetera. And that just turns me off right away. So I don't ever want to do that to any of my clients. If I'm going to share something personal, I'll say, would you mind if I shared a personal experience that I think you might be able to relate to based on what you're going through, and getting that permission to do that.
Well, your listening mentor program is a really good example of teaching coaches how to actually coach and not dictate. That whole idea that you have to become more passively involved in the relationship with your client rather than actively involved, that you've got to really understand where they're coming from and not just say the things that you want to hear yourself say, but say the things that they need said. Tuning into another human being, I think, is one of the payoffs for what you offer in that program.
Thank you, Al. And for anyone who's not aware, we have a program called The Power of Listening. And I think many of us, and including me, there's been times when I realized that I wasn't listening authentically, but we can't be authentic or elevated listeners 24/7 because we actually have things that we have to do that require our attention as well. So one of the things I just wanted to mention in terms of coaching is when you are a coach, at least for me, the way that I coach people is I don't interrupt them. And I have one client who takes the entire time to talk and is actually, I don't really even get a word in edgewise because that's what this person needs. They need to be able to be heard in their life. They don't have an opportunity. They don't feel like they're heard at home or at work. So they come to the coaching session with a lot of things that are built up inside of them. So what I'll do in that case is I give them an action plan that they can take before the next session. And then they come back and they'll talk about how that worked out for them.
I think that's a gift, and that's I've taken the program, and I've learned a lot from it, and I found it to be a really valuable experience. The funny thing is, too, I didn't expect it to be. I don't know why. I think most people think that they're already pretty good listeners. Go figure. And I'm a little on the old side. I don't want to say elderly. Actually, I was recently corrected. Somebody pointed out that up until about the age of 75, you're pre-old. You're not old. Pre-old, right? And I thought to myself, well, I'm just thankful to be pre-dead.
So funny.
I just find that to be such a relief. But anyway, with a fair amount of life experience behind you, you get to a point where you feel like you know everything. And it's a trap for anybody of any age to feel that. Maybe young people, probably more than anybody, feel that without having earned any of it. So the real value for me in the listening journey with you is realizing that maybe I'm not so smart. Maybe there are a few things I could learn. Maybe in a conversation with somebody, I could turn it around in interesting ways and give the other party a chance to shine. And that was a real gift for me, and I appreciate that.
Well, thank you, Al. I appreciate the feedback because that means a lot. When you're putting courses together and you want to educate and also entertain somewhat, you want to make sure that people are getting value out of it. And I feel a great sense of responsibility to make sure that anything I put out there, people are finding relevant. Also, with our programming, we get such wonderful comments from people about how much they enjoy the platform and the fact that they're all different topics, and people love you. For example, they love your voice, they love your professionalism, they love how you engage with the with our guests. So I think it makes a big difference. And the fact that you are open to learning and accepting that maybe there was something more to learn, I think is brilliant, because I think there's always something else to learn. I can't wait for the next thing that I'm going to learn.
And that is it. I'm sure that's a great experience for you. And you mentioned my voice.
Yeah, I actually am looking.
Oh, go ahead. No, I'm sorry. Go ahead. See, I'm
No,
listening.
no. You know what? It froze up for a second. So we were talking. So go ahead.
Oh, no, I was, you mentioned my voice, and a lot of people, I think, are kind of uncomfortable with their voices. We don't really hear ourselves the way other people hear us because the sound is conducted through bones in our ears and through bones in our skull. So the voice we hear is not the voice other people hear. So whenever anybody hears themselves recorded, their first reaction is they don't recognize that voice. And actually, they don't like it even because it doesn't sound like them, if you know what I mean.
Yes.
So, now that we're doing this, I'm getting more of a chance to hear myself. And I'm hoping that you've teed up Diane Floyd Bame's new commercial for her new book.
Yes, I have. I've been.
I want to hear that. For one reason is I want to hear it because it's a great product and a great. I think it's a great book. It's got a lot of magic in it, and it's worth seeing. But secondly, my voice. I want to after we've played it out, I want to confess, and then I want to talk to you, if you don't mind. I want to talk to you a little bit about authenticity and what authenticity means, because I don't think anybody really gets it. I think a lot of people think authenticity is something you fake. It's like putting on authenticity. I've got to put my authenticity face on, which is the opposite of what it ought to be. The total opposite of if you have to work at it, then it's not authentic. That really is kind of the point, making you comfortable with the voice that you might find imperfect or the face that you might think is imperfect. All those things, when you become comfortable with it, make you authentic. And so after I've picked my own voice apart a little bit, thanks to Diane Floyd Bame for the opportunity, I want to talk about authenticity and how you coach somebody to into that.
Okay, fantastic. You know what else I would think would be interesting, Al, is if we played the other Diane Floyd Bame clip to see if your voice changed from one to the other.
Run them both. I can take it.
All right, are you okay with that?
Absolutely, I can take it.
All right,
Cool.
Let's run them both. So we're going to play 2 sponsorships from Diane Floyd Bame, and Al did the voiceovers for both of them. So here's the first one. Let's take a look, and then we'll go right into the second one.
Hello, boys and girls, and welcome to Story Garden. Your host, Diane Bame. I'm so happy to have you here today.
Diane Floyd Bame tells wonderful stories that warm the heart, spark the imagination, and unite people and families across generations. For children, Diane's Harry the Camel connects with all of us who've ever wondered how different our lives might have been if only we'd been born something better, like a wonderful horse instead of an ordinary camel. In the end, we all learn along with Harry that there's nothing better than just being yourself. Diane's Little Girl in the Moon looks down on earthbound children and wonders if they know she's just like them. A story of love, home, and the bond between mother and daughter, its powerful theme that we're each of us different yet all of us the same plants a seed in children that promises to blossom within a loving and trusting grown-up. Diane's new biography, Rise, recounts the experiences of her grandmother, Ruby, to reveal the hidden strength of the human spirit. Ruby's story inspires all of us to become the best versions of ourselves. You'll find all of Diane's delightful books and much more at dianefloydbame.com. Visit dianefloydboehm.com. That's dianefloydbame.com.
Kapayapaan, kapayapaan, kapayapaan.
Diane Floyd Bame's A Song of Peace tells the story of a young lad named Tommy whose fervent wish for peace on earth touches the hearts of his friends and family, spreads to his community, and eventually unites the whole world around making his dream of peace a reality for everyone. Sit down with the children in your life and share Tommy's amazing story of love and hope. Sing your own song of peace and invite the children to join you. Tommy's tale is more than just a story. It's a movement, and everyone's warmly welcome to take part.
Kapayapaan, 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 kapayapaan.
You'll find A Song of Peace, along with many other wonderful learning and enriching opportunities for children of all ages, at dianefloydbame.com.
Which, as we know, is the warm and wonderful story of a building that's being blown up and people being murdered. Well, billions of dollars in something called bearer bonds, which I've never had one of, but they end up in a flurry of snow all over the building after the big explosion scene at the end. And Bruce Willis is, of course, the hero in this. And Bruce Willis, a lot of people don't know this, but he's from South Jersey, South, S-A-L-T-H, Jersey.
Wow, I didn't know that.
He is from right by the Delaware Memorial Bridge, all the way down in. Give me a minute. But if you go down in New Jersey and don't cross the bridge, but rattle around down there, that's where Bruce Willis is from, and you could hear it in his accent, especially in that film. Come out to the coast. Give me a phone call. We'll have a good time. Time. Phone. Come out to the coast. There is a. And I got to tell you, listening to my voice in those two commercials, I can hear little traces of that regional accent. I can.
How about that?
I can. You know what? I won't change it. I'm sorry, but if I say story instead of story, I mean, if I pull that a little bit, it's just the way I am. That's, for me anyway, that's authenticity, and it's not something you should be ashamed of. It's something that I think a lot of people should be proud of. And we're so worried about how we present sometimes. We work so hard at what we show other people that we don't show them us. We show them somebody else. And they immediately know that. And that's when what you're doing begins to suck. That's
and
the
wouldn't
beginning
you
of
say
breakage.
would you say that that's also where the question about trust comes into play? When you can see that someone is not being authentic, you immediately think to yourself, I don't know if I can trust this person because they're putting on some persona, some act.
I think, and that's, they're actually, it's a two-way street. I think that's a really good point. They sound untrustworthy because I'm not sure where the real person is. I haven't met the real person yet. So I don't know whether I can trust this person. I'm not sure. I need to meet the real person before I can have that trust, before I can build that trust. If I never do, or if it takes me more than, let's say, a minute to find that person, I mean, that's the first impression you want to make. This is who I am. And that you want that to come out. I mean, you don't want to be rude or brusque or sloppy about it, but you don't want to be put on and phony about it either, because people spot that. But trust also goes the other way. If you don't trust yourself, then you're always going to be pretending to be somebody else. You've got to have a certain amount of faith in who you are, and a certain amount of faith that other people, not everybody is going to accept that the way you'd like them to, but more often than not, they will, because that's who you are. And, I think that's the real challenge of a coach, not to work with a client to make them a carbon copy of the coach, but to work with the client to make them comfortable enough in their own skin to evolve as that better version of themselves that they're really capable of being. And I know that's how you approach the work you do. Do you enjoy coaching? I mean, is that a fun experience for you?
I think fun is an interesting word. So to be very authentic, when I first started coaching, which I think was in 2019, I was doing it part-time while I was doing my job.
Mm-hmm.
I would get so personally involved, so emotionally attached to whatever the person was saying, that
Mm-hmm.
I would find myself completely exhausted by the end of the session. So if someone was sharing, let's say they have a problem with their weight and they struggle with their weight their whole life, and now they have all these health issues and they were told they might not live that long. And I would just find myself like fighting back the tears. And eventually I said to myself, if you can't get yourself together, you can't be a coach, because this person is not looking for sympathy. They're looking for a way to have a better life, to feel better about themselves. So I would say when I first started, I didn't enjoy it that much, because I felt like I would take the pain in.
Mm.
And so now, where I can recognize the pain, I keep it out of the sessions, and I try to distance myself so that I can be effective to help the person.
So there does come a point in a coach's relationship with a client where an emotional attachment could be counterproductive. Not just
Definitely.
for the client, but for the coach.
Yes. Do you remember the show, The Sopranos?
Oh, sure.
And Tony went to the therapist, I forget her name, and she
Uh,
had to see a therapist.
Melfi, I think, but I know who you mean.
Yes, and so
Dr.
she had
Melfi.
to go with a therapist herself, because
Uh-huh.
she was taking in all of Tony's situation. So
Hmm.
I think it's quite common that you can hear the therapists have to go to other therapists. One thing I wanted to share was, at one point last year, I think I had 6 coaches, and, business coach, a coach for all different things.
Right.
And one of the people was actually always making judgments about things. And I
Hmm.
was able to separate myself. And I finally said to the person, I'm hiring you as a coach. I'm not hiring you as judge and jury. That's not your role. And I
Huh.
think that people get caught up, and they think that they go into a role that's not what their role is. It's not what they've been trained to do. I feel like it's overstepping.
Well, and this, in a lot of ways, especially I think with your listening program, makes you kind of a coach's coach. Because, as we said, sometimes coaches become so emotionally charged in the conversations they have with their clients. They need to have a way to discharge that charge so that they don't end up so wrapped up in it that it actually hurts them. And, I think your whole concept of elevated skills and elevated learning, that whole idea that you can elevate the way you approach the world, I think you're a good living example of that, because I can see you, especially over the course of the last year and a half that we've been working together, I can see you helicoptering up over the trenches to get a kind of a broader view of the landscape underneath. And you get a lot of wisdom when you do that. And that wisdom is a great benefit for the people you serve.
Well, thank you, Al. I appreciate that. And I think, and I'd love to have your opinion about this. I wonder, in addition to coaches and mentors, just in a business role, in whatever role someone has in the workforce or in their own business, do you think that it's possible that we stay in what we're doing for too long, and we end up having a bad attitude, and then we take that attitude and we think that we're better than someone else, and we start I don't know how to explain it, but I've seen it happen many, many times where somebody's done something for so long. It's what they know, it's what they do, it's who they are, but yet they're not happy doing it anymore. And so this inauthenticity starts to come through because they're no longer authentically happy.
Yeah, I was just having that conversation with a friend of mine, an associate of mine, somebody I've known for a long time. We were on the phone this morning and we were talking about how you can end up in a silo that, where you become so good at something, you just keep doing that same thing over and over again, even to address situations where that thing that you're really good at isn't really properly addressed by what you're good at. I don't know if that makes sense, but there's a saying that to somebody with a hammer, everything looks like a nail. So you go through life trying to solve every problem by reframing every problem that you see as something that fits some tool that you're really good at using, some skill that you have that you want to keep using over and over again because you're really good at it. I really think that when you approach the world that way, and a lot of experts, especially experts, do that, I think you become frustrated with it because you realize you're not actually solving any problems. And a lot of anger and frustration is actually born of stopping growing by becoming so good at just one thing that you neglect the world of other things that you might also work on to develop. And I think people get angry with themselves when they stop growing. And I think you stop growing when you get really good at something.
Great points. I love this conversation. Something else I just wanted to put out there is, and I don't know if you have done this in your life, but through most of my career, I've had side gigs. So I've had other things that I was interested in learning about, and I would do those things on the side. So one was a certified makeup artist, for example, as a spin instructor. I mean, there's so many different things. And also with my education, I got my master's, I got my doctorate. But my point is, I have been told many times in my life that I'm too fractured. I'm too all over the place. I'm an inch deep and a mile wide because I'm interested in so many different things. And a lot of the journey that I've had is learning something, getting the gold star or getting the 100. Like I have a real estate license, insurance license, and then I didn't like real estate, so I let it go. My insurance license is due to renew. I'm not going to renew it. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that, but I've gotten a lot of backflash over the years that, you should just be focused on one thing.
Well, focusing on one thing is a kind of crappy advice you get from anybody who's focused on just one thing. But if you really think about the person who's telling you to focus on just one thing, I mean, why would you want to follow somebody who's probably not all that good at what they're doing anyway? I mean, it doesn't, their advice is generally worth exactly that. Yeah, I do think it's important to know a few things to a level of proficiency that people recognize and respect. I think you earn respect with competence. And it's good to be competent at things. It really is. It's not to diminish that, but to just start to focus so much on just one thing that you believe that this one thing you're focused on is more important than anything else means that you're going to overuse it and become ineffective. So a highly focused person who just knows one thing, don't get me wrong, if I'm having a heart transplant, I don't want the heart to be transplanted by somebody who isn't a surgeon. I don't want to get a do-it-yourself kit in the mail. Now, generally speaking, and that whole idea that I'm a heart transplant surgeon because I spent last night at the Holiday Inn, that creeps me out a little bit. Though you definitely do need competency in certain roles. But when you sit down with that heart surgeon at the end of it and you talk about the way you have to live the rest of your life based on the fact that you just had this surgery, your ability to connect with that surgeon is not going to be based on the fact that he's a terrific or she is a terrific heart surgeon. It's going to be based on the fact that they've lived a life outside of heart surgery. They understand what you're going through. They can empathize with what you're feeling. They know what you're afraid of, even if you don't. And, that means that really everybody's a coach. And you can only be a coach if you've got a broad breadth. You talk about 5 miles wide and an inch deep. I don't believe that. I think 5 miles wide is true, but it's not an inch. It's way deeper than that. You've lived a life. You've done you've had difficulties. You've had adversity. You've had to come back from things. I mean, what better example is there of a human life than a living one? And that you bring all that to I think as a coach, you don't leave any of that at home. You bring all that to work. And that's what makes working with you so much, so enriching, so helpful.
Well, thank you, Al. I appreciate that. And you certainly are very well versed, learned in many topics and many subjects. And you actually helped me create this broadcast studio. I mean, you gave me a lot of uh, the insights about the television world, the ins and outs about what really goes on, things that I had no idea. And
That's
so,
the
with what you do with your company, and then also the fact that you are a TV show host and RVN television, you have this whole other side of you. I mean, you created that beautiful work for Diane. You do the voiceover for USA Global TV. So you also are very multi-talented. And if
well,
you just focused on one thing, the world will be deprived of all these other things that you do so well.
and and they're all fun, really. I mean, mixing up your week so that you get to do a little bit of all of it. It's just a lot of fun. And talking a little bit about brand and culture alignment. That's a group experience. The purpose, the goal of brand and culture alignment is to connect people in a group or on a team with the purpose that the team or group serves. And that's a facilitated process. It's not directed. And that is, I don't know. I don't know if I'm explaining this correctly. It's a learning experience. There is actually there are two books. When I'm not watching Die Hard, every now and then I'm reading a book on something. And one book in particular, the other is simple, and I'll talk about that later. But there is a book called The Fifth Discipline that was written by an MIT professor called Peter Senge, and it's a very worthwhile read. And one of the points he makes is that the ultimate goal of any organization is to become what he refers to as a learning organization. That is an organization collectively that grows through the experience of each of its individual members as they share those experiences with each other. It's the opposite of a siloed organization where everybody's just doing their jobs and not thinking about anything else. And you think about really successful companies like Apple Computer and Google and companies that we respect and admire and maybe even fear a little bit sometimes. Those companies are learning organizations because they encourage the organization to evolve as though it were a single organism. And that evolution is driven by the hopes and dreams of the individuals who contribute to their mission every day. I don't know whether I communicated that clearly.
Yes.
But there's an elevated level above competence. And, we talked about competence and why that's important, but there's another step. Sometimes we stop at competent. Sometimes we stop at the thing that we're really good at and fail to reach for that next higher level, which is where all the magic is. And that brings me to my second book, by the way, which is the Tao Te Ching, which everybody's heard of. And I haven't read all of it, but my favorite chapter in that book so far is chapter 38. One of the quotes from the Tao, chapter 38, is the good person, the master, does nothing, yet nothing goes undone.
I love
That whole idea that you can step back from intervening and allow the people around you to accomplish something, just supporting them along the way, even if sometimes that means you've got to subjugate your ego a little, meaning you're not going to get credit. Somebody else is going to get credit. That's important. Everybody else is going to get the credit, not you. That's number one. And number two, you've got to be patient enough to allow that to unfold like a flower. You can't rush it. Yeah, but when it does, it's a beautiful thing. Even if you don't exactly get the credit for it, something wonderful happened and you contributed to it by leaving it alone, by guiding it rather than directing it. And, to me anyway, that's the holy grail of coaching.
I love that reference. I haven't read that book, so thank you for sharing that. But something I want to say,
38.
Chapter 38 is
like
that
this big. It's exactly my kind of book.
That's what I need to. Small book.
The chapters are like little. The whole book you can knock out in one session on the toilet, for crying out loud.
I like big font.
That's terrific. Big font, one page, whole chapter, all done. And and a lot of people think if you're going to impart wisdom, it takes thousands of pages to do that, and that's just not true at all. Some of the wisest things that were ever said were said in 30 words. And for me, anyway, the master does nothing, yet nothing goes undone. The good person. It's talking about good people. Master is probably a bad translation. It's written originally in Chinese. I'd like to tell you, I read it in Chinese. I did not. I read the translation, but there are different translations, and the more accurate translation is the good person does nothing, yet nothing goes undone. And it's a very, very subtle definition of what a high quality human being is.
So, Al, do you think that is a parallel to living a heart-centric life, heart-centric as opposed to egocentric? Because when it's about the ego, it's constantly taking credit for everything. I did this, I did that. And heart-centric, it's letting someone else take credit for it.
And realizing that you may never, in fact, get the party may never be in your honor, but it doesn't matter as long as you're invited to it and it's a great party.
Yes.
I mean, if you realize that if we're celebrating something and you played a role in that, and really honestly, I talk every now and then about how I was a project manager at NBC, and I'm proud of the work I did. And I have an ego. There's some things I think I do really well, and one of the things I think I do really well is letting other people take the credit. And when I do that, they light up, and when they light up, they get things done. So you get the project done because now all of a sudden everybody wants it done, and they all pitch in and get it done for you or with you. When it's all over with, it's them that you're celebrating. Every one of them gets a trophy. Every one of them gets recognition, and they're all proud of that. But the people that really matter will look at you at that party, and they'll know that you were a big part of that. I mean, you're getting the credit. You're just not getting the applause, if that makes sense. And you don't want it. That's not what you want. What you wanted was the thing that we're celebrating to become a reality and to be part of the celebration.
And Al, I have to say that really describes you, because you don't ever want credit. That's why I want people to know all the things that you've done to help me, because you're behind the scenes, and you say all the time, you don't need it. You don't want it. But at the same time, just in this situation, I want to make sure that you're acknowledged, because you have so much wisdom and you have so much talent, and you offer it willingly without getting the recognition.
Well, I appreciate those kind words. And, for half an hour on a television program like this, I can pull it together. You have seen me at my worst. You know what that's like too. And, I'm as imperfect as anybody else. And, that's part of the territory. You can't do anything much about that. But overall, when we accomplish something together, where, even if I'm not there exactly for it, the whole idea that somehow something happened and I played a role in that, that's always been I talked about this once when I was a kid. It wasn't that I was particularly good at any sport. In fact, I was pretty crummy at it. I mean, whenever they choose up sides, I'd always get picked last. And usually I'd end up the umpire, because no team ever wanted me playing on it, because that was a guarantee that you'd lose. I was just couldn't catch, couldn't throw, couldn't hit, didn't care. That was really the reason why I didn't care about that. But I really enjoyed being the guy that got them all together to play the game. And they wouldn't have. They would have all gone their own ways. And if there are 30 kids playing a game, 15 to a side, figuring out who's going to bat next and who's going to pitch, and they're doing all that, and I'm just sitting there on the side, and I'm the guy that made that happen, that as a kid made me really happy. So the whole idea that there was a game being played, whether I was in it or not, was what really mattered to me. And that's still true, I think.
Great point. I'm picturing you out there on the
Really
field.
crummy. I was a very uncoordinated, skinny little guy, and but I was funny. I mean, I was funny, and and that was it worked out. I mean, it really did.
I'm sure people loved having you
The
around.
way I did, you had two choices. One choice was to become tough enough to beat up all the other kids. The other choice was to become savvy enough to know how to talk your way out of getting beaten up by all the other kids. I fell into the second category. So,
And
and that,
look at you today.
that actually, the scars don't show, but they're there, but they don't show all that much. So,
Well, I just want to share with you, I love to bowl, and I was really bad because I have giant thumbs. So my thumb would always get stuck in the ball. Like it would be a key time when I need to get a strike, and I throw the ball into my leg. I can't tell you how many times. Finally, people are like, please don't invite her to be on the team, please. We've got a comment. Let's see. From Robert J. Moore. Great to see you both. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. Hello to you.
Robert,
Nice
thank
to
you very much, and have a great Christmas and Happy New Year to you as well. Great.
And by the way, Robert, the new book, Adversity to Awesome, which you're featured in a chapter, is going to be coming out soon. I'll be back in touch with you about that. So
Can you talk a little bit about that book, or is it still kind of a state secret?
It's a little bit of a state secret. The cover's finished and
Right.
it's going through the editing process, but it's my second book, and it's basically about people who have overcome incredible adversity and now they're doing really awesome things in the world. And Robert J. Moore is one of those people. And each person in the book has a chapter dedicated to themselves. And it's about lifting other people up and letting people realize that whatever your journey is, wherever you've been, excuse me, that's not the end for you, that there's
Mhm.
more if you were interested in that. And we've got another comment. He's being featured in Forbes. Yes.
That's congratulations.
Congratulations. That was
That's
the big
great news.
secret, I guessed on, I think it was on Facebook. We were supposed to guess, and I didn't come back to see what the answer was. I'm sorry. So congratulations. When can we see you in Forbes, Robert? If you can let us
That
know
is
that.
great news. Great news.
Let's see. Yes. Okay. We need it. When can we see you in Forbes? Let us know. Okay.
Good. We'll look
So
for
yeah. So Al, we're going to wrap up because you and I have another show coming up with Mr. Hyatt Ives right after this. The
a
listening
listening
mentor.
program. Yes, looking forward to that.
Any insights you want to give to people why they should hang around for the next show?
Yeah, what I'm hoping is that we'll be able to reschedule our guest who wasn't able to make it today, Suzanne Taylor King. She has a series on LinkedIn, and people should go there. If you can look for Suzanne Taylor King on LinkedIn, she's got a series on how to make New Year's resolutions. And we have a little bit of time between now and the end of the year. Maybe we can get her to come back and share some of that, because I think an awful lot of people make New Year's resolutions and maybe have a little bit of difficulty keeping them. And it'd be nice to hear her insight on that.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm putting her name here in the chat. Okay, Robert did comment. Where did it just go? Okay, he's going to post it once Forbes has completed it. Okay, well,
And you'll be on a
congratulations.
future show. Congratulations, Robert. That's great news.
That's wonderful. Okay, and so what I'm suggesting as we wrap up is that I think, Al, you can give your opinion, please. I think a wonderful New Year's resolution is that you invest in yourself and you learn how to listen, and taking the power of listening course. I am doing a little self-promotion, which I don't do that much, but the power of listening. Al is an elevated listener. He's graduated from the program. And I think the more we learn to listen without judging, without providing solutions, without cutting people off, the more peace there's going to be in this world.
And I can tell you from experience, it's a very, very small investment and a very big return. So good luck with that program, Doc.
Thank you. Our next online seminar is January 5th. We're doing parts 1 and 2. So you can go over to, where are you going? To Eventbrite. There it is. Eventbrite. It was right on the top of my mind. Okay, Eventbrite.
Good.
Just look for the power of listening. Al, I'm going to spotlight you again and put up your contact information. But for people who are listening, and Chris Roberts says hello, by the way, what's the best way for people to get in touch with you?
The best way to get a hold of me is through my email address, which is al.cini, al.cini @getbcat.com. Or we have an 800 number, 855-999-BCAT, which is 2228. And we'd love to talk about how this year and maybe going into next year, we can help your group or team or department. Could be as few as 2 people, could be as many as 50 or more. How we can create a meaningful team building experience by building your team around your purpose. Better than bowling, better than paintball. All those things are fun, and I'm not knocking that, but instead of an event, it's the beginning of a program that really rallies people around your purpose in a meaningful and sustainable way. The result of which is you become a more successful learning organization. And the people that work for you become more invested in their work and love what they do. So thanks for the opportunity to say that, Doc. Appreciate it.
Thank you. All right, everyone. Al and I are going to close up the program for now. And if you stay here, wherever you're watching on any of the 11 channels, you can see our next show coming up in 15 minutes, The Listening Mentor. So that's all we have for today. We look forward to seeing you next week. And we will be broadcasting our shows throughout the rest of the year. I am not taking any time off. So Al, how about you?
Well, where else would I go?
You love Jersey. You're in New Jersey. You love it there.
I'm in New Jersey. Yeah, come out to the coast. We'll have a good time. Call me on the phone.
All right, everybody. Thanks so much. Thank you, Al.
Thanks,
We'll see
everybody.
you again.
Thanks.
Bye.